She fed him a bite of creme brulee. In front of everyone. Not with a fork, either. No, with her fingers. Delicately, like some private game they forgot to take behind closed doors. I stood 10 feet away, watching her tilt her head back and laugh like he'd whispered the secret of the universe. A shrill, flirtatious cackle that turned a few heads, and then quickly turned them back, because no one wants to witness a man being publicly neutered. My tie was still perfect. My shirt still pressed. I still technically existed. But in that ballroom, with the string quartet, and overpriced wine and rented ego on every corner, I may as well have been a waiter she didn't tip. She didn't even introduce me when her boss arrived. Just slid her hand onto his arm like it belonged there. He glanced at me once, dismissively, like I was the valet that parked their car crooked. Then back to her. Always back to her. When the champagne tower got unveiled, she dragged him over like a kid showing off a science fair volcano. Her boss leaned in close. Said something. She laughed, touched his chest. Her hand stayed there too long. That was my wife. My wife. I didn't even get a glance when she passed me for the third time. Just a tossed, "Could you grab me a Perrier?" over her shoulder like I was her handler. I stood there, blinking like an idiot, holding a sweating glass that no one ever came back for. And maybe I would have stayed there, rooted like some ornamental fixture by the bar, watching the humiliation snowball. But then she did something worse. She turned, looked straight at me, then tilted her head to her boss, and said something with a smirk. He laughed. Not a polite chuckle. Not a corporate chuckle. A real, guttural laugh. Whatever she said was about me. That's when I felt the hand on my arm. Delicate. Steady. Unapologetic. Let's give them something to talk about. I turned. It was his wife. Her lipstick hadn't smudged once all evening. Eyes cool, posture composed. A woman who'd seen things and learned never to blink. She didn't wait for permission. Just linked her arm with mine and guided us toward the ballroom exit like she was leading me out of a burning building. And as we passed the dance floor, I didn't look back. But I heard it. That split-second silence, the gap in my wife's laughter. The inhale before panic. She saw us. She saw her. She saw me. And whatever fantasy she'd been living. About being untouchable. About her perfect little affair happening behind closed doors. It cracked right there in the glittering light of the chandeliers. That's when it started. Not the affair. That had already happened. I'm talking about the shift. The pivot. The unraveling she didn't see coming because she thought the man in the shadows had no teeth. I didn't need a scene. I didn't want revenge show. I wanted silence and precision. I wanted her to wake up one day and realize she was no longer in the house. She was the house. And I'd already sold it. And hey, if you're still reading this and you've ever been in a room where your partner pretends you're just air, do me a favor. Tap that subscribe button. I've noticed over 90% of the folks who listen to stories like this never subscribe, and trust me, it means a lot to the team that brings these to life. We see every one of you. Now, back to the gala. When we stepped outside, she still hadn't moved from her spot. Like her world didn't know whether to explode or freeze. Good. Let it glitch. The valet brought the car around. The boss's wife, Marcy, held the door for me. She didn't say anything for a few blocks. Didn't need to. I stared out the window. My fingers finally stopped shaking. Her perfume was light, but sharp. Sandalwood and citrus. And power. Tell me, she said, finally breaking the silence. Does your wife lie the way mine does? Like it's foreplay? I turned to her. She lies like it's a job interview. Smile included. We didn't laugh. It wasn't funny. But it was honest. And it was the beginning of something neither of them were ready for. We didn't say a word until the parking garage swallowed us. The heavy thump of her heels echoed off the concrete, controlled and deliberate, like everything else about her. She didn't walk fast. She walked like someone who had already made up her mind and was just waiting for the world to catch up. She stopped beside a matte black Mercedes, rested one hand on the roof, and turned to me like she'd just remembered I was there. I'm not stupid, she said. No anger. No tremble. Just fact. I nodded slightly, unsure if she meant to comfort me or warn me. She opened her clutch and pulled out a phone. I've seen the texts. I didn't even have to snoop. My husband's lazy when he cheats. He forgets to delete. Or maybe he thinks I won't bother checking. I leaned against the cold concrete pillar. I thought she was just networking. A little too eager. A little too loud. Marcy gave a short laugh, mirthless. No. Eager is when you stay late. Loud is when you push ideas in meetings. She didn't do either. She giggled at his jokes and booked his hotel rooms personally. She tapped her phone again, then held it up without turning it my way. Want to guess the name on the receipt from the Four Seasons in Chicago last month? I don't want to guess. I want facts. Her head tilted slightly, appraising me. Good. Because I want precision. There it was again, that word. Precision. Like this was a boardroom acquisition and not the decaying corpse of 2 marriages. She wasn't here to cry or scream or ask if I still loved my wife. She wanted tactical cooperation. After she joined his team, he stopped syncing his calendar to the cloud, she said, sliding her phone back into the clutch. Stopped inviting me to company events. Started using phrases like optics when I asked why I wasn't invited to the leadership retreat. I exhaled. He said she was just really capable. That she brings energy to the team. I laughed once, bitterly. She managed a shared inbox before this. Suddenly, she's leading off-site strategy meetings in Napa. Marcy nodded, her expression still unreadable. Did she ever mention the Boston trip? I looked at her. She said it was canceled. It wasn't. Her eyes locked onto mine now. I was there. I wasn't invited. I went. There were 2 hotel keys in his jacket pocket. I took one. Went upstairs. She let the pause hang. I didn't ask what she saw. She didn't need to say it. I didn't say anything then, she continued. I just walked out. I needed time. And now, she finally smiled. It wasn't friendly. Now I want truth. And justice. Why both? I asked. Because truth alone lets them walk away with a smirk. Justice takes the smirk with it. For the first time all night, I felt something settle in me. Not comfort. Not even peace. Just clarity. A calm acknowledgement that this wasn't salvageable. That the person I married was no longer someone I needed to protect from consequences. I pulled out my phone. She handed me hers. We exchanged numbers like professionals. No hug. No vow. Just a digital handshake over mutual betrayal. And just before she got into her car, she added, start checking the billing statements. Search by her middle name. That's what she uses when she wants to look discreet. I froze. Because I had seen that name, Elaine, on a flower delivery invoice 6 months ago. Sent to a private address in the city. She said it was for a friend. A colleague's birthday. I nodded. And you? I'll handle legal, she said. You handle patterns. Let's see what matches. The door shut with a soft thud. The engine purred to life, and she drove off like she hadn't just redrawn the battle lines of our lives. I stood there in the garage, phone still in hand. The contact she left me under? Elaine's HR nightmare. And below it, a note in her bio section. Trust dies in silence. So does reputation. We weren't in love. We weren't friends. We were co-architects of a correction, the kind they'd never see coming. I didn't sleep much that week, not because I was heartbroken, but because I couldn't stop pulling threads. Every night, I sat at the kitchen table while she snored upstairs, phone in one hand, old receipts in the other, watching a marriage unravel in real time through metadata and account activity. I had lived beside this woman for a decade, shared bills, a bed, a dog, and yet somehow I knew less about her than Chase Bank did. Marcy sent screenshots like clockwork. She had access, real access. Her husband wasn't careful. Passwords recycled. Devices synced. His tablet had been signed into the same email account for 3 years, and he never noticed. Maybe he thought he was untouchable. Maybe she had stopped checking years ago, and he assumed that would never change. She started with the easy stuff. Slack messages sent after 11 p.m. on work travel nights. Calendar invites with ambiguous titles like Q3 Opportunity Dinner and Internal Alignment Prep, but scheduled at steakhouses and boutique hotels. Photos of meeting notes that included her name in handwritten margins with travel comp, circled in red. It was bad, but not proof. So I got dirty. First stop, my airline account. She always insisted on using my points. It was practical, she said. No sense wasting them. But when I checked my flight history, I saw something off. A booking from 4 months ago to Atlanta. First class. Non-refundable. She told me she was flying coach to DC for a seminar. Even texted a fake gate photo. But this wasn't a mistake. This was bold. She booked it under her maiden middle name. Elaine. The same alias from the flower order. The delivery address? Not her mother's. Not a friend's. Not a hotel. But a residential loft address that matched one of Marcy's screenshots. Her husband's so-called development property. Next stop. The florist. She'd asked me to cover a charge last spring. Said it was a gift for a colleague recovering from surgery. The charge came through on my card, $163.74. A little steep for a get-well bouquet, but I was working late that week and didn't press. I called the florist. Can I confirm the delivery name on that order from April 14th? Pause. Yes, the voice said. Sent to Mr. Ronald Hargrave. Card read. Thank you for another unforgettable weekend. E. I had to mute the phone so the florist wouldn't hear me laugh. That was the moment, right there. Not when I saw the hotel receipts. Not when Marcy showed me the dinner reservations. But when I realized she sent flowers to another man using my money and my name on the charge. That's when disbelief turned into something else. I opened Excel, created a timeline, started plugging in everything: flights, receipts, Uber logs, calendar entries, unexplained cash withdrawals. Marcy sent over screenshots every day. Hotel room charges labeled conference dinner, but tagged with 2 guests. Board meeting notes where my wife had clearly spoken, but was never supposed to be there. There was even a weird one, an art gallery donation. $500 from Mr. and Mrs. Hargrave. Funny thing was, we never donated to that gallery. She hated modern art, called it pretentious, but the donation came with a VIP dinner invite. I pulled up the gallery's event page. One photo stood out. There she was, in the background, wearing the necklace I bought her for our 5th anniversary, standing beside her boss, hand on his back, smiling like she belonged there. I sent the photo to Marcy. She didn't respond. Instead, she uploaded a shared drive link titled Asset Build. Inside, a folder with subfolders labeled Timeline, Correspondence, HR Violations, and one chillingly specific, Pre-retaliation. She wasn't collecting dirt. She was building a case. Add what you find, she texted. Use initials. And keep backups. I replied, already encrypted. Secondary drive in place. Let me know when you want to move. This wasn't paranoia anymore. It was preparation. I started checking for bugs in my own finances. Not literal ones, just the things that make you realize how much someone has access to. Auto debits, joint accounts, shared cloud drives, password autofill. And with every withdrawal I made from that joint account, I left a breadcrumb. She wouldn't notice at first, but she would. Eventually. This wasn't just infidelity. This was an operation. One she thought she ran. But we were documenting everything now. Every innocent business trip. Every overlapping expense report. Every shared dinner that she'd called strategic planning. She once told me that data was boring. No one ever checks statements unless they're broke, she laughed. She was about to learn that some people don't check because they trust. But when that trust burns, they build spreadsheets. With purpose. Sunday morning, she sat cross-legged on the couch in her silk pajamas, sipping her 3rd cup of coffee from a mug that said #BossBabe. The sun poured in through the big front windows she insisted we install last year. For natural light, she said, for Instagram aesthetics. I watched the light fall across her face and thought about how many lies had lived in this room. It looked peaceful, but it wasn't. She scrolled her phone lazily with one hand, eyes glued to whatever feed told her she was still adored, still desired, still the center of something. Then, without looking up, she said it. Try not to embarrass me at the next company event. I raised my eyes from the paper and gave her a soft smile. The kind I used to mean. Now it was just camouflage. Sure, I said. Wouldn't want to interrupt your networking. She rolled her eyes. Don't start. But I didn't. I didn't need to. Because while she sat there flippant and smug, I was getting real-time bank notifications on my phone. Transfers completed. Accounts unlinked. Credit lines separated. Her email no longer had access to our mortgage portal, and the cabin in the mountains, the one she'd claimed was our escape, but never once visited without her phone glued to her hand, was now under a trust. My trust. She thought she still held the reins. Thought I was sulking, stewing, licking my wounds. I was simply reorganizing. Quietly. Permanently. She got up, stretched like a cat, and wandered toward the kitchen. Are you still mad about the gala? She asked, fake casual. It was just a work thing. I folded the paper. You know me? I said. I don't get mad. I just get quiet. She froze for half a second. Maybe she felt something shift, but then shook it off and went to the fridge. You were being weird anyway, she mumbled. People noticed. You should be more present. Present. Right. Like I wasn't always present. At her side. In her corner, funding her lifestyle, nodding along through every overpriced project she wanted to launch. I was present when she changed jobs 5 times in 2 years because the culture just wasn't empowering. I was present when she told me she didn't want kids yet, but kept the puppy instead. I was present when her boss became Ronnie, then Ron, then just R, like they were in some exclusive text message cult. And now she wanted me to be present better. I'll work on that, I said, sipping my own coffee. But I was already elsewhere. Marcy and I had agreed on a timeline. Evidence was still being compiled. We'd mapped out 3 phases: financial, legal, and reputation. She had contacts in HR. I had contacts in compliance. We were only just beginning, and already the structure was shifting beneath my wife's carefully curated life. She came back into the living room, holding her phone like a mirror. I might do a live tonight. I've been getting a ton of DMs since that photo from the gala. Ronnie looked great, right? There it was again, Ronnie. Not my boss. Not Mr. Hargrave. Just Ronnie. Like he was her plus one in a relationship that had already left me behind. I'm sure he'll appreciate the exposure, I said, voice flat. She waved a hand. Oh, please. He lives for attention. Don't be petty. Petty. Right. Because I hadn't thrown a scene. Because I hadn't called her out. Because I was letting her pretend nothing was happening. That made me the problem. But let her think that. Let her live in the illusion a little longer. Because the moment I moved out, really out, would be the moment her life started collapsing in ways she wouldn't even notice at first. Not until the locks changed and the brand deals dried up and the company started asking questions about personal expenses and misappropriated discretionary budgets. That's the thing about living with someone who's always playing offense. They forget defense even exists, until it swallows them whole. She looked up suddenly. Hey, what's the login for the joint savings again? I need to check something real quick. I took a long sip. Try it and see. She frowned. Did you change it? I didn't answer. She laughed. Wow. Okay. Paranoid much? I smiled again. That same polite, empty smile. The kind that doesn't push or accuse. The kind that lets her talk herself into thinking she's still in control. I'm going to take the car this week, I said. I've got some meetings out of town. Oh, she said, eyes narrowing. Where? Just a cabin. Somewhere peaceful. She blinked. The one we bought. I shrugged. It's not really ours anymore. She stared at me, waiting, fishing for more. I gave her nothing. Let her sit with that. Let her stew in it just long enough to think it was still salvageable. The worst thing you can do to a manipulator is not react. Just make moves. Quiet ones. Permanent ones. That Sunday, she thought she'd scored the final word. But I'd already written the closing chapter. Monday started with a ping. Marcy had sent the file just before 7 a.m. A clean, well-structured HR complaint. No dramatics. No accusations she couldn't back up. Just timestamps, meeting logs, photos from internal events, and a detailed outline of her husband's shifting behavior after my wife joined his team. It wasn't written like a jealous spouse. It read like a whistleblower summary. The subject line, preliminary concerns regarding workplace conduct. It landed quietly in the inbox of the HR director, who, according to Marcy, was already wary of how personal things had become in their department. She knew the culture. She knew who gossiped, who leaked, and who covered their ass the second wind shifted. This wasn't about rage. It was about momentum. An hour later, an anonymous tip hit the compliance office. I wrote it. Short. Surgical. Ongoing relationship between team lead and subordinate assistant, possibly influencing bonus structures and travel expenses. Suggest cross-referencing expense reports from Q1 and Q3. Note discrepancies in hotel reimbursements during non-conference periods. Relationship may impact vendor bidding integrity. No names. Just enough data points to force a keyword search. Compliance doesn't need accusations. It needs anomalies. And we'd serve them several. By noon, the system had stirred. She was pulled into a closed-door meeting. No prior notice. No time to reapply her lipstick or fake surprise. Just a summons. 2 HR reps. 1 from compliance. A notepad already opened on the table. I wasn't there, obviously, but I could imagine it. That smile she always used when she was caught off guard, but wanted to appear breezy. That laugh she used to disarm. And then the slight edge that always crept into her voice when she felt cornered but couldn't show it. I could hear the cadence. I knew her moves. She came home early. Slammed the door harder than usual. Her heels hit the hardwood like accusations. I was at the kitchen counter, slicing an apple. She walked past me, dropped her bag a little too loudly on the floor, and opened the fridge with a sharp tug. They're overreacting, she muttered. God, HR is such a joke. I looked up. Calm. Interesting. She turned. Excuse me. I shrugged. Just interesting. That's all. She narrowed her eyes. They said someone reported a pattern. Like, what does that even mean? And I'm suddenly under review for conflict of interest. I don't even sign off on anything. Ron does. Sure, I said, setting down the knife. But you help him, right? Travel arrangements. Events. That kind of thing. She paused. Yeah, but that's part of my role. Of course. She searched my face. Why do you sound so smug? Do I? I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just glad they're finally clarifying roles. She took a step closer. Did you say something? To whom? She didn't answer, just stared, waiting for me to flinch. But I didn't. She was rattled. The flush on her cheeks hadn't faded. Her hands were still fidgeting, fixing her shirt, brushing her hair back, retightening the gold bracelet she only wore when she wanted to feel powerful. I'm not doing anything wrong, she said. He's my boss. We work together. That's it. Totally. I nodded. Just a lot of late meetings for someone who's only booking hotels. Her jaw tightened. It's called being dedicated. You wouldn't understand. Clearly not. She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the bedroom. As she passed, her voice dropped to a hiss. If this is some weird passive-aggressive thing because of the gala, grow up. I didn't respond. Because the moment she made it about me was the moment I knew she hadn't figured it out yet. She was still clinging to the idea that this was marital tension. A bruised ego. A sulking husband. She didn't realize she was no longer fighting me. She was fighting a system that had already started logging her digital fingerprints. Marcy texted later. They called Ron in at 4:15. Meeting lasted 11 minutes. He came out pale. No eye contact. I replied, let the pressure settle. Don't rush the next step. At 6:03 p.m., I got an alert. A new login on our joint streaming account. From his zip code. She was still using my accounts to binge-watch murder mysteries in his apartment. She wasn't even trying to cover her tracks anymore. Or maybe she thought she didn't need to. Either way, the system didn't care. Compliance doesn't need guilt. It needs patterns. And now, she was the pattern. Tuesday began with silence and ended with fire. She was already tense at breakfast. Not the dramatic kind, not the tears or shouting kind. No, this was surgical silence. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, pretending to scroll her phone, but every muscle in her face was holding something back. Her fingers kept flicking the screen like it owed her an apology. I knew why. Marcy had warned me the night before. They're backing out. I gave them enough. Just enough. They meant Baywood Capital, a mid-size investment group slated to co-lead a major cross-platform deal with her company. My wife had bragged about it for weeks. She even made a vision board on the fridge, cutouts from Forbes, little gold pushpins, her initials in faux cursive next to Ron's on a sticky note. This contract puts us in a new league, she'd said. If it lands, I move up. So does he. But now, Baywood was gone. No announcement. No confrontation. Just a polite withdrawal email. We're choosing to pause further collaboration due to potential internal conflict of interest exposures. The internal audit wasn't scheduled until next month. This wasn't fallout. It was sabotage. Her phone buzzed. Then again. 3 times in under a minute. She finally spoke. Something's wrong with the partner deal. Baywood just backed out. I sipped my coffee. That's surprising. She looked up. Ron's freaking out. No one saw it coming. Something about leaked optics. Like, what even is that? I tilted my head. Maybe it's about that audit session last month. You said it went well. She squinted. What? You were at that steakhouse. What was it? Silver Point. You said it was a strategic review night. Her face twitched. It was work. I slid my phone across the table. The screen was already on. A leaked image from a business blog that covered corporate shakeups. A photo, blurred just enough to raise doubt, but clear enough for those who knew them. Her, Ron, at a back corner booth, his hand resting on hers across the table, both smiling. Candlelit. Time-stamped 8:14 p.m. The same hour she'd claimed to be deep in budget reconciliation for Q3. The caption? Internal audit or private affair. Concerns grow over emerging power couple at Westridge Capital. Her spoon clattered into her bowl. Who posted this? I leaned back. Looks like someone in the restaurant snapped it. Or maybe a waiter. You never know who's watching these days. She was already texting Ron. Fingers flying. Eyes darting. I watched her spiral, not outward, but inward. You could see her trying to do the math. Had they been followed? Had they been hacked? Had one of their own turned? She never considered the simplest truth. The person who leaked it didn't need to sneak into anything. She lived in his house. Marcy hadn't just collected the evidence. She deployed it. The partner firm? Marcy's former client. The head of strategy there still owed her a favor. She played the long game, just like she said she would. This is ridiculous, my wife hissed. We weren't doing anything wrong. It was just dinner. During an audit review? I asked, feigning confusion. At a white tablecloth restaurant with no laptops. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I let the silence grow roots. I need to go in, she said finally. He wants to regroup. We're going to get ahead of it. I nodded. Good idea. She stood, grabbed her bag. Almost left. Then turned back. Did you send that photo? I raised an eyebrow. How would I have it? Her stare lingered. But she didn't have an answer, because she still couldn't see the real shape of the trap. At work, things were worse. Marcy texted me again around noon. He tried to call in a favor with PR, got shut down. His wife already filed a protective clause on joint assets. He's on full damage control. I wrote back, let him sweat. Don't pull yet. She replied with a single image, a boardroom attendance sheet, handwritten next to Ron's name, pending HR review. Under my wife's? Observed. Not scheduled. Asterisked. Back home that night, she collapsed onto the couch, not even bothering to take her heels off. Her phone was still lighting up. They're treating this like a scandal, she said, eyes wide. It's not. There's nothing formal. Just a leak. It's not even official. I just nodded. Do you believe me? She asked, voice cracking slightly. I looked at her. Really looked. I believe you're surprised this happened. She froze. It was the closest I'd come to saying it outright. But I didn't need to. The cracks were spreading fast, and this wasn't just about her anymore. Ron's reputation was bleeding out too, and all we'd done so far was share one photo. The dinner never happened. Not the way they claimed. But the consequences? Very, very real. She was mid-scroll when the call came through, her father's name flashing across the screen, the one contact she never ignored. Not because she respected him, not really, but because he still held the strings that dangled over her lifestyle. Her last name was only worth something because his still opened doors. She sat up straighter, cleared her throat, and answered with the upbeat lilt she always reserved for her parents. Hey, Dad. No response for a beat. Then, why did my tax advisor just ask about the Florida account? Just like that, her posture stiffened. The smile dropped. I watched it from across the room, pretending to read, but every molecule of my focus zeroed in. I'm not sure what you mean, she said, fumbling. Which Florida account? He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. The one we opened when you got married. Joint signatory rights. You remember. She swallowed. Yeah, I remember. But why would your guy be looking at that? It's not active anymore. That's what I thought too, he said, until he ran a routine compliance update and flagged it. Apparently, your name was recently changed to non-authorized. She stood up, started pacing. I didn't touch anything. That has to be a mistake. Maybe it's just the bank updating their terms or something. It wasn't the bank, he cut in. He checked. Silence. Across the room, I flipped a page I wasn't reading. She glanced at me and turned away quickly. I can look into it, she said. I'll ask Marcus, he might know. He's been handling some of the accounts lately. Another pause. Longer this time. You mean your husband? Her father asked. She didn't answer. Why is he handling family finances? He asked flatly. That was your responsibility. That account existed so you had standing in the event of transition. And now revoked. She rubbed her forehead. It's probably just something small. Let me talk to him. Her father sighed. Not annoyed. Resigned. You don't get it yet, do you? Her voice cracked slightly. Get what? That he didn't yell, her father said, voice now quiet, almost regretful. He didn't fight. Didn't storm into offices or send letters or throw dishes. She froze in place. He just made your name smaller. She sat down slowly, as if her knees had buckled beneath her. The room felt colder. I thought I could manage this, she whispered. Her father didn't respond. When she realized the line was still open, she added, I didn't think it would bleed into everything. Another beat of silence. He's not bleeding, her father finally said. He's cauterizing. Quietly. Permanently. Then the line went dead. She sat there with the phone in her lap, staring at the screen like it had betrayed her. Like it should have explained something it didn't. I stood up, walked into the kitchen. The sound of the faucet running filled the space between us. What did he want? I asked casually, drying my hands. She hesitated. Just old stuff. Nothing urgent. I nodded. Okay. She waited for more, maybe even hoped for it. A dig. A raised voice. A hint of the man she could weaponize. But I gave her nothing. No bait. No anchor. She couldn't fight a ghost, and I had become one. Silent, strategic, already halfway gone in every system that mattered. She spent the rest of the day obsessively combing through shared files, resetting passwords, digging into statements she hadn't looked at in months. But every time she tried to access something financial, she hit a dead end. Her name didn't bounce. It just didn't register. She was a guest in her own accounts now, a bystander in a structure she thought she owned. And somewhere between the bank lockouts and the silence from her father, she realized something deeper. Her foundation wasn't cracking. It had already been moved, brick by brick. While she was too busy curating her image, I had rearranged her reality. She didn't know how far it went yet. But that question Why did my tax advisor just ask about the Florida account? That was the first thread. She'd spend the next week pulling it, and it would only get worse. The email hit her inbox at 9:12 a.m. She was still in bed, half buried under the duvet with her laptop propped on her knees, pretending to work. I was already dressed, suitcase zipped, car keys in hand. I gave her a nod as I walked past the bedroom door. She barely looked up. She didn't see the smirk I couldn't suppress. I heard the intake of breath before the screen lit her face. "Oh, come on," she muttered. I paused in the hallway. Listened. "Unbelievable," she said again, louder this time. Then she slammed her laptop shut like it had personally insulted her. She walked into the living room, barefoot, still in one of those oversized t-shirts she bought to look casual on Zoom calls. She held the laptop like it was radioactive. "Did you know about this?" she asked, voice sharp. "About what?" I asked without turning around. I was checking the tire pressure through the car app. She tossed the laptop onto the counter between us. "This." I glanced down. An email titled, "You're cordially invited. Renewal of vows for Mr. and Mrs. Ronald Hargrave." The banner was sleek. Gold serif font over a cream background. RSVP required. Departmental heads, partners, and senior support staff, all invited. Except her. There was no RSVP button for her. No +1 option. No "see you there." Just a polite opening line. "We're thrilled to celebrate the continued partnership, both professional and personal, between Ron and Marcy Hargrave. Your support over the years has meant the world to us." She blinked at the screen, stunned. This has to be some kind of oversight. I sipped my coffee. Probably. Like, maybe the list didn't update. Or they forgot. I mean, I'm on his team. I nodded. "Used to be." "What?" I turned my screen toward her. My phone had pinged a minute earlier. Her face went pale. It was a system alert. Access to strategic partner folder. Suspended. Same timestamp as the wedding invite. She sat down slowly, brows drawn tight. "This is retaliation," she said, more to herself than to me. "They're doing this to isolate me. It's political." "Everything's political," I said, grabbing my overnight bag. "You taught me that." She looked up. "Where are you going?" "Business trip," I said. "Cabin. That account retreat I mentioned last week." "What car are you taking?" I pressed the fob. Outside, the SUV chirped to life. She stood up. "That's my car." I looked at her. "Is it?" The silence between us stretched. No yelling. No storming. Just the deep, stomach-turning pause of someone realizing the foundation has already shifted beneath them. She rushed back to the counter, reopened the laptop, started clicking, frantic now. "No," she muttered. "No. I still have admin access. I'm still looped in. I'm still on the project folder." Another ping. "Authorization revoked. File not found." Then another. "Your calendar access has been modified by admin." And then the final one. "You have been removed from Project Zenith Visibility Group." That was Ron's baby. The strategic flagship. The one she told me would make her indispensable. Now she wasn't even relevant. She turned to me, eyes wide. "Did you do something?" I picked up my jacket, slung it over my shoulder. I didn't have to. She followed me to the door. "You don't get it. They're rewriting the narrative. They're pushing me out like I'm some intern who slept her way into promotions." I paused at the threshold. "Maybe you should have picked someone who didn't have a wife with a memory like Marcy's," I said calmly. "Or a husband who reads terms and conditions." "You think this is funny?" she snapped. "No," I said. "I think it's done." And then I walked out. She didn't follow. I watched her through the front window, frozen, standing in the center of the room with her laptop still open on the counter, watching her status evaporate one notification at a time. The invites kept going out that day. Departmental buzz exploded. People talked. No one included her. Her inbox? Full of pity CCs, polite non-comments. One brave soul even sent her a screenshot of the seating chart. Her name wasn't even in the regrets section. She tried texting Ron. No reply. She tried calling his assistant. Voicemail. She tried logging into her backup profile. Locked. She wasn't being shamed. She was being erased. And the worst part? She couldn't even find where it started. She stormed into the HR suite like a woman walking into a courtroom she still thought she could charm. Wore all black, sleek, sharp, calculated. The same outfit she wore to negotiations when she wanted to project power without needing to raise her voice. Her heels clicked with intent down the hallway, like each step was a punctuation mark in a speech no one asked her to give. She didn't wait for reception to announce her. Just walked straight to the glass door marked Human Resources Compliance Division and knocked once before opening it herself. "I want to clarify a few things," she said. already pulling documents from her tote. There's been a gross misinterpretation of my role and responsibilities in the strategic projects department, and I think it's time we realigned the facts. But the room was already full. 2 HR reps sat quietly across from an empty chair. Beside them, leaning back slightly, legal pad in front of him, was the head of compliance. Not a friendly face. Not a scheduled meeting. She froze for a fraction of a second. "Have a seat, Ms. Hargrave," the compliance officer said. No greeting. No smile. Just the clipped tone of someone who didn't want coffee, didn't need small talk, and had already read the ending. She sat. "We've reviewed your concerns," the HR rep began. "But as part of our process, we'd like to first walk you through the documentation we've collected independently." "Documentation?" she repeated, blinking. "Of what?" The compliance officer reached under the table and pulled out a thick gray binder. Not a file. Not a report. A full binder. Tabbed. Numbered. Marked. He slid it across the table like a final exam. Inside, flagged expenses. Duplicate invoices. Conference registrations submitted under 2 different codes. Hotel stays justified with event memos that didn't match the company calendar. Ride-share receipts logged during hours she claimed to be working remotely from another city. And then the flower order. She recognized it instantly, the one sent to Ron's penthouse after their trip to Chicago. She used her middle name, paid with a shared card, wrote a note she thought would disappear into petals. She turned the page. A flight booking, first class, on her husband's rewards account. For a trip she told payroll was business critical. Only problem? The company had no record of her being there. No minutes. No badge in. Just charges. "Some of these aren't even mine," she said, voice cracking just slightly. "They were filed under your employee ID," the HR rep said gently, as if trying to pad the impact. She flipped faster now, pages turning like blades. And then she found it. A single sheet. Typed. Not official, but damning. Investigation prompted by joint financial discrepancy report. Submitted with corroborated timeline. Initiated by spouse. Her fingers gripped the paper like it might change under pressure. Like she could fold it away and rewrite it. She breathed. "He filed this." The compliance officer didn't blink. "Your husband?" "Yes." She sat back. Suddenly, the room shrank. Her breath slowed, then quickened again. Not panic. Not yet. But the kind of dread that comes when the mask slips, and you realize someone saw your real face a long time ago. "You said it was anonymous," she muttered. "We said the tip was," the HR rep corrected. "The internal documentation? That came later. With full disclosures." She stared ahead, eyes unfocused. "Why?" she whispered. No one answered. But she knew. The man she humiliated at the gala. The one she used as her errand boy at corporate events. The one she told to be more useful in front of colleagues. The man she stopped inviting to meetings, then started using as a financial ghost to fund her double life. He didn't scream. He filed. He didn't accuse. He documented. And now, the company she thought would defend her, the one she'd flirted and finessed and clung to, was using his evidence to consider removal. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The confidence was gone. The swagger collapsed. "Do I have a right to representation?" she asked finally. The compliance officer folded his hands. Not yet. They let her sit with that. No reassurance. No pat on the back. Just silence and the soft hum of the air vent, blowing through a room where every decision had already been made. Outside, her phone buzzed. She didn't check it. Inside, the binder stayed open. Tab 7. Misuse of travel privileges. Subject E. Hargrave. She read it again. Then again. And that's when it hit her. This didn't start with a scandal. Or a photo. Or a jealous spouse. It started the moment she waved him off like a waiter at that gala. That was the moment he decided to become something she'd never prepared for. A witness. With records. And reach. She had thought silence was safety. But he'd weaponized it. And she never even saw the fuse. She wore navy. The same blazer she'd worn when Ron first introduced her as his rising star in that glossy conference room 2 years ago. Hair tied tight, lipstick exact, heels just high enough to signal poise without desperation. She walked into the office like it was still hers, chin up, expression neutral, telling herself that this was all salvageable if she just explained it correctly. That if she reminded the right people of her value, they'd come to their senses. The elevator ride was quiet. A junior associate glanced at her, then quickly looked away. On the top floor, the glass doors didn't open when she swiped her badge. She tried again. Nothing. A second later, a soft chime. The receptionist behind the glass picked up the phone without looking and said, "She's here." Two security guards stepped forward from behind the elevator alcove. One male, one female, both polite, both silent. "Ma'am," the woman said. "This way, please." "No. Wait. I'm here to meet with legal. I scheduled." The man gently raised his hand. Not to stop her, just to signal, this is not a conversation. They flanked her without touching her, guiding her down the hallway that used to buzz when she walked through it. Now it was silent. No eye contact. Doors quietly shutting as she passed. Computers locking. Colleagues suddenly on break. She opened her mouth again. Closed it. They reached the elevator. The female officer pushed a button. The male officer handed her a single envelope. No name. No logo. She opened it. Inside, one line. "This concludes your access. Further correspondence will be through counsel." No signature. No farewell. The elevator doors opened. They stepped in together. She was too stunned to cry, too angry to scream. It didn't feel real. Not even when they reached the ground floor and the guards peeled away without saying goodbye. Not even when the receptionist gave her a thin, professional nod without standing up. It felt like a dream, a loop, a glitch in a system she'd always controlled. But then the glass doors opened to the sidewalk. And he was there, her husband, waiting by the curb. Black coat, hands in pockets. Calm as always. Not watching for her, watching for someone else. A moment later, Marcy stepped out from the building behind her. Hair perfect, eyes steady. She didn't say anything to the woman she'd just helped dismantle. She just walked past, toward the car. Her husband opened the back door, let Marcy in first, then followed. He didn't glance back. Not once. The door shut. The car pulled away. And for the first time in her adult life, the woman who had mastered every game, every promotion, every performance, every social pivot, stood there with nothing. No title, no job, no man, no leverage. Just a handbag, a silent phone, and a blazer that didn't fit anymore. She looked at the revolving doors behind her. They didn't open. She looked at the street ahead. No one made room. And then, finally, she understood. The night she waved him off like a stranger wasn't a fluke. It was the beginning of her removal, not by force, not with fire, but by silence, by systems, by the very man she once called invisible, who simply stepped back and let gravity do the rest.